taught you guys how to build lats so big, you'll look like you're about ready to take flight. As well as quads that are so comedically huge, they more resemble a pair of tree trunks than a pair of legs. And so, today, by popular demand, I'm going to give you guys my 3 favorite exercises to help you build up a pair of boulders where your shoulders used to be. And the best part is, if you follow my advice, your shoulders are going to be as strong and powerful as they look. And not a single lame-ass, put-me-to-sleep lateral raise or front raise is required. So let's get to it. Like in the other videos of this series, I'm not going to give you guys a set-in-stone program or anything like that. But rather, I'm just going to present you guys with a few key exercises and a set of guidelines that, if followed consistently and diligently for a long period of time, will ultimately give you the result you're looking for. That is, a pair of strong and muscularly dense shoulders that pop out from your arms and provide your upper body with that broad, athletic look that everyone's always chasing after. While achieving this goal, you'll also simultaneously be drastically increasing your upper body pressing strength as well as your total body power, and ensuring that you achieve balance and healthy development across all 3 heads of the deltoid. Now, before I divulge the exercises, I just want to make an important note. The ideology I'm going to recommend today goes completely against the ideas of modern bodybuilding. And because of how prolific those ideas are, many of you may be perplexed at the exercise recommendations I'm going to make here, as well as the noticeable absence of things like lateral raises and front raises of all variations, whether they be with dumbbells or machines or cables or whatever, which theoretically allow you to isolate the individual heads of the deltoid muscle. The thing is, I've tried that stuff, and I'm sure many of you guys have tried it as well. And be honest, how many of you actually built big, broad shoulders using lateral raises? I'm going to venture a wild guess that it wasn't too many of you, and that those of you who were successful probably already had genetically broad shoulders to begin with, or you used gear. The funny thing is, the deltoid muscles, just like the trap muscles, are known for being hyper-responsive to steroid usage due to having a higher number of androgen receptors than many other muscle groups. Basically, the shoulders just grow big by default when you use steroids. But in my experience, a natural lifter is going to be hard-pressed to build big shoulders by doing nothing but fluff and pump work, getting a huge pump, causing a lot of metabolic stress or lactic acid buildup or whatever fancy terms you want to call it. This stuff works for gear users because anything would work for gear users when it comes to this muscle group. So if you see some big dude walking around with big 3D delts and he tells you to do a bunch of isolation work to build up your shoulders, you may consider taking that advice with a grain of salt. I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but the shoulders, just like the quads and just like the lats, require hard, heavy, and consistent work on compound exercises with a focus on progressive overload if you want them to become impressive. That's just the way of the world, and it's simply how our bodies are built. If you want them to change, you have to give them a good enough reason to do so. And candy-ass lateral raises using 30-pound dumbbells simply aren't a good enough reason. Anyway, before I piss too many people off, let's get on with the video. So, there are 3 heads to the deltoid, and each of the 3 heads has its own anatomical function, which is where the whole idea of separating the functions with different isolation movements comes into play. However, as a collective, the 3 heads work together to elevate the arms overhead, much the same way as you'd see in a strict press. And that's precisely why the strict overhead press is my first exercise recommendation for building cannonball shoulders. It's the perfect trifecta between utilizing a full range of motion while still allowing for the use of heavy weights and simultaneously engaging as much of the shoulder musculature as possible. If you compare an overhead press with a front raise, which isolates shoulder flexion, or a lateral raise, which isolates shoulder abduction, it's no contest which one is better because the overhead press not only incorporates both actions into one movement and therefore both the anterior and lateral heads of the deltoid simultaneously, but it also encourages co-activation of the posterior fibers for stability purposes, and does so through a much larger range of motion while allowing for the use of far greater loading by working the upper body as a system in a natural movement pattern that's highly receptive to progressive overload. Try this. Do nothing but dumbbell raises for a year and see how much you can strict press overhead at the end of that year. I'll give you a hint. It won't be very much. Now, do the inverse. Do nothing but strict presses for a year, and then play around with the dumbbells one day and see how much weight you can front and lateral raise with. I guarantee you it'll be more weight than what you could use when you were doing nothing but dumbbell raises. Even the mighty bench press pales in comparison to the overhead press when it comes to shoulder development. The bench basically isolates the action of the anterior deltoid while leaving the lateral and posterior delts high and dry. It also takes the shoulder joint through only about 50% of the range of motion of an overhead press. So, rule number 1 for building big shoulders: get good at overhead pressing. Learn how to press safely, and then press heavy, press often, and put your time in under the bar, and you'll receive a pair of big, strong shoulders as your reward. But your journey for cannonball delts isn't over yet. While the overhead press is going to be your base exercise that your programming is built around and is going to lead to solid overall development, it's still going to emphasize the anterior head of the deltoid. So now we need another monolith of an exercise that's going to emphasize the lateral head as well, to really give your shoulders that pop. And you guys already know what's coming. One of my favorite exercises, the snatch grip high pull. I've already noted the myriad of benefits of this exercise a billion times at this point, and you can add cannonball side delts to the list now. But these are also going to smoke your upper back as a whole, as well as your traps, and help to boost rate of force development, increase nervous system activation, and really help to bolster total body power development. And they're fun as hell, too. So you're really killing 20 birds with one stone with this single exercise. And I'm not sure who would ever choose to do a lateral raise when they can do this instead. I think I've discussed programming these before, but just to reiterate, since it's an explosive movement, you're generally going to be better off sticking to lower reps, like 3 to 5 per set, and knocking out multiple sets per session. Anywhere from 3 to 5 on the low end, but possibly even all the way up to 10 once you're proficient. Lastly, now we need a good exercise that's going to emphasize the posterior deltoid and really balance everything out, as well as help to keep your shoulders healthy for the long term. This is where the face pull comes into play. This exercise is great because it combines both functions of the posterior deltoid, namely shoulder extension and external rotation, into a single movement, while also incorporating pretty much every single small muscle group that makes up the upper back, as well as engaging the rhomboids for scapular retraction and the smaller muscles of the rotator cuff to aid in external rotation. Putting an emphasis on all these smaller muscle groups in addition to the rear delts is important from an aesthetic perspective, but it's also paramount when it comes to maintaining balance and healthy development across the upper body, as well as maintaining optimal posture and acting as a means of counteracting all those thousands of reps of bench pressing that I know you're doing. You really can't have too strong of an upper back. And this final exercise is the icing on the cake for rounding out those boulders that you're trying to slap on top of your arms. One final note, these are best done for high-ish reps. Anywhere from 10 to 20 reps per set works well. I like to go heavier sometimes and lighter other times, which is very profound, I know. A smooth rather than explosive concentric phase works best, and a controlled but not overly slow eccentric works well also. In order to ensure minimal cheating and really smash the delts and upper back, holding each rep for a 1 to 2 count pause in the contracted position is also a good idea. Lastly, as a pro tip, doing these sitting on the floor using the low cable is far better than doing them from a standing position. You can use way more weight and still get better upper back and rear delt activation when you don't have to worry so much about balancing yourself. Now, after all has been said and done, I'm not saying that bodybuilding style shoulder training and isolating the functions of each head of the deltoid with 10-pound dumbbells and cable raises can't work without drugs. I'm just saying that for most of you, I truly don't think it will. But even if it did work for every single one of you, I still don't get why anyone would train that way, because to be perfectly honest, it's fucking boring as hell and offers absolutely no benefits beyond the idea of building the muscles themselves. On the other hand, the manner of training that I've presented you with here is not only going to build a natural trainee's shoulders better than the traditional bodybuilding methodology, but it's also going to build more muscle overall across the body and lead to much more drastic and sustainable changes in body composition in the long run. And it's going to do so while building an immense amount of overall strength and total body power in a fashion that can be sustained essentially indefinitely with proper programming, all the while making training an incredibly fun, highly enjoyable, and immensely challenging process. Now, I'm not telling you which path to follow, but for me, it's a no-brainer. Anyway, that's all I got for today, guys. Please be sure to like the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and definitely leave me some love in the comments down below. Also, if you're interested in online coaching, be sure to shoot me an email at unkiri.elite@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to pass some more info your way. Keep training hard, and I will catch you guys next time.